Alright, in this video we're going to talk about how to go about modeling a human body. Alright, just like the human face, there needs to be a very specific form of loops in your geometry for it to deform correctly when you're animating. And if this type of loops need to happen mostly around the chest to shoulder area and the kind of groin to leg area. Alright, so when we go about creating geometry, again, we want to make sure that our geometry flows from our chest to our shoulder rather than starting on the chest and going around. Okay, same thing here. We want our geometry to start from go from the groin area into our leg rather than going all the way across. If you have geometry going all the way across like this, the geometry is just not going to deform correctly when you're animating, and you're going to get a lot of weird kind of collapsing issues and things like that. But again, it just kind of all depends on the complexity of the character. Sometimes with simple characters, geometry like what I'm about to show you is not necessary, but for something that's human, you need to have the right amount, the right loops for this to deform correctly. So just like we started with our face, I'm actually going to start the body by using planes as well. And again, this can be done using box modeling techniques by starting with a box primitive, starting shaving around. I find it easier to go in there and draw the geometry myself. So go to create and polygon and plane. Alright, and again, we want to make sure that our image is kind of at the 0, 0. So I just want to make sure that that's the case here at the grid. Alright, so that seems to be right. So just draw a plane around here, and again, I'm kind of keeping my geometry a little large, just because I want to keep the geometry low until it gets to the point that I want to go in there and add details. Some people keep them slow. Keep them small, just to kind of make it easier to draw in the detail. I find it easier to do the detail afterwards once I have the right topology. So again, I'm just gonna shape this up a little bit. Maybe I'll make it a little bit more rectangular. Okay, then I'm going to go into my side viewport, and I'm going to use this plane to start drawing the curvature of my body here. So again, right click, edge, deselect what you don't need. Then we're going to add the extrude. Alright, and just kind of keep repeating the command. Alright, I'm going to do, as a matter of fact, I'm going to keep this one around here. And let's just select my edges one more time. Okay, select the bottom ones to select what I don't need. Extrude, drag, and I keep pressing G just to kind of repeat the last action, just to make it easier. And again, this is one of those cases where it's probably easier if I just kind of start going all the way around and I actually finish also the back. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Alright. And again, even if the geometry that I have here doesn't define the body the way it's supposed to, I can always go back and add more geometry later on. So again, I'm just trying to kind of block things out. Okay. And this will be the last one. And again, we're going to have a gap here because that's kind of around the area where we're going to have to connect our face. Alright. And again, I think I added a little bit more geometry than I want to, but it's fine. Now, my next step is to start creating some of this geometry kind of going around. And again, it's fine if we have geometry that starts, kind of below this area and goes around. The geometry that starts on the chest, for the most part, you want to make sure that it flows towards your shoulder. Okay? So, and again, if you don't want to work with that many polygons, you can kind of go in here and kind of get rid of some of the stuff. Again, just to kind of make it easier for you to work with, and then you can add the details later on. So I'm just going to maybe go in here and get rid of a couple things that I might not need at the moment. Just feel like this is a little bit too much. Alright, so again, I find it easier just to work with a little bit of bigger faces. Some people start with smaller faces and then start drawing stuff out. It just kind of really depends on what you're more comfortable with. Let's start with with some of this shoulder geometry and maybe start connecting some of this stuff. Another thing that I can do just to kind of make it easier for me to kind of start connecting the front, the back, and having some flowing geometry into the shoulder is actually creating the geometry that's going to define what's going on here on the side as well. Again, I could kind of use some of the geometry here to do that. And just go to the front. I got that polygon selected. I'm just going to do an extrude. Just gonna put it all the way here. Again, this face I'm just gonna get rid of, but I'm just using that as a way to start creating the geometry here on the side. So again, just gonna use this. Alright. Okay, now we have some geometry that's defining the front, the back, and the side. I'm going to get rid of this face right here, so I'm not going to need that. And then, again, now it's a matter of start kind of bridging some of this stuff and start defining the body. So, you can start by selecting some of these edges like this, and then just bridging. Alright. And again, be mindful of your settings. Right now, my bridge settings has this to create subdivisions as I click on the bridge. I find it easier if I only have one division, alright, that I can just kind of come here and mold and just place on the right area to give this some curvature. And if I need more resolution here, again, rather than starting with two divisions, I can just take this, bevel it, and that didn't work. Let's see. And again, it kind of all depends on the settings on my tool. This one is kind of dividing this into more segments that I need. Let's just see if I just do one. Okay, and again, I'm kind of creating a little bit of geometry here that I don't need. I can just kind of get rid of that. Again, if this is too much, it's probably too much for this. I'm just going to stick to 0 segments, bevel it, and that's not doing anything. Alright, just going to get rid of this face. And again, it's just kind of taking the position of the edge that I had right here and just kind of subdividing to kind of give us a little more resolution, a little more curvature. And I can do the same thing to start connecting these edges on the side. Let's talk about the topology that needs to happen here on the chest to go into the shoulder. So again, for this one, I probably want to go into the front viewport. Going to use this edge. Then I'm going to use the extrude just to kind of go here and start molding this geometry into going into that area. And again, keep in mind that you're doing this in the front viewport, so this is going to be flat. So you're going to have to go into the side and that perspective to start giving it the right curvature, the right perspective. And again, I'm just kind of drawing in this like this, and extrude it one more time. Alright. So now if I go into my perspective, you're gonna see, again, it started with the curvature that I had going on here, and then kind of took a really weird turn here. But now I can go into the perspective and the side viewport and start kind of shaping this up to what it needs to be. So again, taking these edges, kind of move them back like this, turning this polygon like this a little bit so it's following on the right form, turning this up a bit. Okay, and again switching between back and forth between perspective. And making sure you're also using the right rotate settings. Makes it easier for you. You can also go in here and kind of move your vertices around a bit. Alright. And again, you always kind of want to kind of go back and forth between your polygon blocky mode into smooth version by clicking on 3. Just see what geometry is doing to make sure that, you know, edges are kind of welding correctly. If you see anything that's a sharp edge or some weird geometry, there is an issue going on there. So again, it could be that your edges are not connected correctly, or some sort of angon, some sort of floating vertice that you have just happening right there. But again, everything looks good so far. Alright, so I'm just gonna go back to this, and I'm gonna again keep drawing the geometry in this direction. So I'm just gonna go ahead and open the next file. And again, I'm gonna open this one first, just to show you the first block that I did. And again, in this one, I made the conscious choice of actually using less geometry than what I did on the try that I just showed you. Because again, I'm more concerned about the right shape, the right topology, but I don't want to focus too much on detail right now, because again, it can get a little messy. So as you can see, we got the right topology on the shoulder floor in this direction. Rather than creating the side polygons the way I did, again, I think what I ended up doing was just bridging this, taking that edge and moving it outside here, and then using the bevel tool to actually add more geometry here, and then just shape it. And again, at this point, again, it's just a matter of making sure that we have the right amount of geometry to connect everything. So something like this, I'll probably have to go in here and add a connection. Alright, right now it's flat, so we just kind of have to bring it out like this. And then it's just a matter of then going to my edges and bridging this stuff. Alright. I would suggest that you actually select everything that you want to bridge rather than doing it each individually, because sometimes that's the cause for having edges that are not welded correctly. So then I can just click on bridge. Okay. And again, I gotta keep in mind that when I do this, these are not gonna be welded, so I have to go in here and do that myself. And again, just to make sure, just select it, but just to show you what happens when you don't have you know, things connected the proper way. You get like this really sharp geometry in here. This is telling you right here that there is an open edge. You know, everything should be looking smooth the way you see it right here. So again, the solution is going in there. Make sure that everything is sewn the way it's supposed to be sewn or merged. Okay. And again, I have the shoulder topology kind of going around. You know, I gotta make sure that this kind of follows the same flow. And I got this geometry right here that's kind of defining, I guess, this area of the chest. So this is gonna kind of again keep going around. So a couple ways that I can go about this. um, let's see. This geometry can flow either giving me another loop around the shoulder right here. It could actually go all the way across here. I probably, and again, I'm not sure what decision I made, so let's just kind of open the next one. That was buddy 0. Let's go to 1. Alright. So what I ended up doing, now that I have the geometry here going all the way around for this geometry to the form right, this is actually going across here, and it's going to start kind of forming the pocket where the arm's going to be modeled. And again, I'm going to show you what I ended up doing is actually extruding the geometry right off the pocket that I'm creating to create the arm. But you know, if it's more if it's easier for you to start from a primitive like a cylinder and then attach it, that's also something else that you can do. So again, just to show you what was the decision right there, let's just move on to the next one. Alright, so in this one, again, you're starting to see that this geometry went all the way across, and the idea was to go in here, start defining the pocket for the arm. So again, we can see that this geometry is flowing this way, we have geometry flowing this way, and again, rather than going the way across, we also have geometry flowing in this direction. Alright, so by having geometry like this, we are going to have a shoulder that's actually going to be able to fold correctly in this direction. And again, this was just a matter of forming the pocket right here by using the already existing geometry that I created with this and this. I created another extrusion here, made sure that these faces were welded, and then I extruded this out to form what the arm's going to be. And again, at this point, again, just trying to keep things simple. I don't want to add too much geometry, because once I do the hand, then you know, things are going to have to change a little bit on my arm for everything to fit. So moving on to the next one. Alright. So again, we defined what the shoulder was doing, and then I came in here and started defining how the hip area was going to be defined. So same principle. I had this geometry right here. I started extruding faces in this direction, and then I made sure that whatever geometry I have flowing this way followed the same direction. And again, I have, as long as I have this polygon right here shouldn't give me that much of a problem. And then just a matter of making sure that the backside was doing the same thing. Alright, and again, not necessarily the same edge flow, but at some point I'm going to have to go in there and correct this. Perhaps I could even do it right now just by doing something like this. Alright. So again, took the already existing geometry, extruded things out, and then started creating bridges across, and just making sure that everything was facing in the same, everything was heading the same kind of direction of the loop. So again, just making sure that everything's kind of flowing towards the leg so it deforms correctly when we're animating. Let's just check out the next file. Body 4. I believe this is the last one. Alright, so again, in this one, once I had the right flow of geometry going into my legs, and again, one thing that I need to point out here also is that you know, even my reference, because of the way that it was shot, has a little bit too much perspective. So it's not going to follow specifically what it's doing. It's also not, you know, I kind of settled with kind of making sure that it had the same. I mean, it's following the reference from the image plane from the front. All right, and then I used the side plate mostly as a reference on how the leg was supposed to go, but it's not following exactly what this leg is doing, because again there's a little bit too much perspective there. So I need to keep into account that that's not correct if I'm looking at an image that's truly orthographic and not, without any sort of perspective. So again, once I had the right amount of geometry in the pocket here, then it was just a matter of extruding this geometry down and added as much geometry as needed. Again, usually this amount of loops is what you would need in a joint like a knee for it to bend correctly. And the geometry right now is just simple enough that I could go in here and add details to it if I wanted to. Again, it kind of all depends on what the purpose of the project is. For what I'm doing with this, I know that eventually I want to go in here and model clothes on top of the body. So if I'm not technically showing a body that needs to show I don't know, any sort of muscle definition and things like that, perhaps settling to something like this, making sure that it has the right flow of geometry for deformation, is something that I want to stick to. But if I wanted to go in here and add more definition, I have the right geometry loop flow for me to be able to go in there and do that. Again, another reason why I'm keeping it simple like this is because these are also going to be the basis for my clothes. So I don't want to be doing. I want to make sure this is not as too complex at this point. If I wanted to add more definition to this, I will probably make sure that I have a copy of this body somewhere that doesn't have the definition. Alright, and again, I'll probably be using this one as the basis for my clothes. But again, start by kind of keeping things simple, and then if you need to add more detail, just make sure at the beginning that you have the right flow and geometry, and then go in there and add detail. Alright, so this concludes the lesson on how going about creating a 3D body.